The wind has shifted, and there's a new empire on the horizon. The Babylonians or the Chaldeans. And by the time of the writing of this book, Jehoiakim is king. And this king has turned away from everything Josiah, his dad, did. All the reforms, all the blessings, all the temple worship, all the sound of praise in the streets, it's gone. And Jehoiakim, a man who is rotten to the core, is leading Judah to ruin. And Habakkuk in chapter 1 looks across the nation. He sees the state of society, abject ungodliness wherever he looks. They ought to be holy, but they're heinous. They ought to be careful, but they're careless. They ought to worship, but they're wicked. And the prophet begins his book, verse 1, with a burden. If you have a Bible, or if you want to throw it back up on the screen for us, we'll make our way through the text. It's not just a message or a sermon. It's not even an oracle, as the ESV phrases it. The word is a burden, a heavy weight that is almost incomprehensible. It means to be desperately, heavily weighed down. So when Habakkuk surveys the scene, his heart is broken and his heart is appalled. Here's a people who've lived under the promises of blessing. But look at them now. Life is cheap and God is forgotten. And wherever he turns in society in verses 1 through 4, there is violence and destruction. His world is upside down because the law is paralyzed, you see in the verses after this. Justice never gets done. There is strife and contention all around as people act as they please and do as they like. And God, verse 2, well, he doesn't appear to be listening. The broken cry out and he doesn't step in. The anguish say, there's violence going on. My life is being overrun by those who hurt me. And God's not saving. And the very God who is of purer eyes than to behold evil, it seems in verse 3 that he's holding Habakkuk's eyes open. And Habakkuk can't believe it. If you're of purer eyes than to behold evil, why do I need to look at it? Why do you make me see sin all around me? And he's drowning in a vortex of sadness and pain as he sees the sins, political, religious, moral, all around him. He's like a drowning man. He's about to go under, and it's not a one-off prayer. You see, Habakkuk exhausts himself with prayers for God to answer him. So it's no surprise that he cries out, how long? How long is it going to be like this? How long will I weep and be overwhelmed? How long will I cry out at violence and injustice? All there is sinfulness. Lord, can't you hear me? I'm pleading and I'm bearing my soul. I need you to hear me and do something. I need you to acknowledge me, because right now it seems that all I've got is the heavens like brass. It seems like I'm getting an engaged tone. It seems that when I knock upon your door, it just echoes and you've gone on holiday. And folk, let's be honest. Haven't you been there? If you haven't, you probably will be. It might not be the state of the nation that you can't understand. It might not be the way God has allowed circumstances on a grand scale that shock you when you click the TV or open the paper. It may well be that you're totally perplexed about how God is dealing with you right now. Times when a storm of unexpected pain or a wave of sadness breaks upon you, hits you like a punch in the stomach. You hear that news, or you find that lump, or you receive that phone call, and all you can do is break down inside, numbness at first. But then it rips at you, fear, shock, sadness. You wonder what God is doing. Lord, if you're good, if you're loving, if you're kind, what are you doing? Are you even real? Are you there? 1,000,000 questions and 1,000 tears. And they're real questions in the reality of life. And the reason we're looking at the book of Habakkuk is that this age-old book grapples with those up-to-date problems. Questions we know are real, but often we don't dare ask. It doesn't seem polite or godly to ask them or to pray that way. How can God be in control when his people suffer? How can he hate evil, but leave us to swim in the sea of filth? Why do paedophiles get away with abusing children? Why do drug dealers get away with ruining lives? Are you dumbfounded by the encroaching of Islam or the insanity of government? It's one thing to live in a nation where abortion on demand has been voted through Parliament and suicide on request has been legislated in the Commons. But to know that if you comment on social media to defend Christian principles, you might be cancelled or you might be arrested is something again. It's only a matter of weeks ago that a thoughtful young man, a father of two, stood for truth on America's campuses and was shot through the neck. And social media exploded with laughter. It's only days since a synagogue in Manchester was attacked. It's only a couple of days since we stood in Times Square in New York, where the pictures of kidnapped victims had been daubed with swastikas in Times Square, just up the road from the Upper East Side. We live in a time that feels alien and frightening. What is God doing? Have you ever asked questions like that? If you have, then you need the book of Habakkuk, because it doesn't duck the hard questions. It rubs up hard with the prickly and the miserable. But be encouraged. If you're perplexed and crying out, you're not alone and you're not weird. Your confusion and your despair, they're all in this book, because this prophet of God, this messenger of heaven, this preacher of truth, who is dear to the heart of God, is asking the same questions. I want to remind you that if all you can muster are cries and misery right now, it doesn't mean that it's incompatible with being a man or woman of faith. Can I say that again? The reason I do is because the preachers of prosperity will tell you that if you're not rejoicing, dancing, and singing with a spoon in your mouth, then your Christianity is deficient. They are liars. There are times in the life of every believer when heaven seems silent and God seems absent, but when almighty providence is still at work. It may seem that God has abdicated his throne, but Habakkuk tells us that not only is he on the throne, but he is there. So, Habakkuk cries out, verses 1 to 4. But in verses 5 and 6, God answers him. The problem is, it's not the answer that Habakkuk expects. I do hear you, says God. I know all about what's going on, but I'm about to do something about it. I'm about to burst on the scene. The thing is, what I'm going to do might be hard to swallow or difficult to accept. I'm going to act in a mystery of providence that verse 5 will astound you. It'll leave you so you can hardly believe it. What is it, Lord? You can imagine Habakkuk on the edge of his seat. Won't you tell me what you're going to do about the evil around and the wickedness that's before my eyes? My callous knees and my tear-stained cheeks are hanging on every word. Are you going to come and destroy them? Well, Habakkuk, things are going to get worse before they get better. You see, verse 6, I am going to pour my judgment, but I'm going to raise up the Chaldeans as a vehicle of my glory. I'm going to bring a bitter and a hasty nation to sweep across the land. There's going to be a marching army, verse 6. An army that steals what it doesn't own and takes what it doesn't possess. Self-assured, self-confident. They make their own rules. They deal their own justice. A people, verse 7, whose very presence creates dread and terror. In fact, verse 8, the people are going to come like swift leopards. Have you ever seen a leopard pursuing its prey? Maybe on a wildlife documentary across the steppes of the Serengeti. Have you seen the way it darts from side to side, cornering its helpless, terrified victim? Teeth showing, claws unsheathed. It is a bloodthirsty killing machine, and God says, I'm going to send them. And I'm going to send them like fierce, ravening wolves. You can imagine the scene, can't you? More fierce than the evening wolves. You're in the snow of the Arctic Circle, or amongst the rocks of the American West, and there are hungry, menacing wolves. They're all fangs and saliva, their eyes like coals, circling a single deer. There's no mercy or gentleness in wolves, only terrifying growls and bloody death. And God says, the Chaldeans, I'm going to send their soldiers and their cavalry. They'll be like that, and they'll be like eagles. They're going to drop from heaven silently, unexpectedly, with their talons extended, with their beak like a rapier, until it plucks the bird out of the sky. Do you see the inhuman picture that Habakkuk's painting? God speaks of a savage eagle that tears and slashes, a bloodthirsty wolf pack, a ravaging leopard. The Chaldeans will maim and murder. And they're going to come and kidnap, verse 9. They'll come with ropes and chains. And they'll take their captives in their palms, like you and I would just pick up some sand off the shore. And all of the grains, and they'll scoop them up. It'll be that easy. And they'll carry them off. And it doesn't matter, verse 10, whether you send your kings to oppose them or your rulers to fight them, because you'll find that they laugh in your face and overcome you. And like a devastating hurricane, verse 11, they will sweep through like the wind. Have you ever seen the devastation of a hurricane? Trees uprooted, roofs removed, cars upended, people devastated and lost. Chaos and ruin, and these pagan, irreligious conquerors whose only God is themselves will take everything away. No wonder Habakkuk is shocked. In fact, he's about to be even more shocked, because we read in these verses that it is God himself who raises up Babylon to commit these atrocities. He's not standing by. He's not unable. He's not incapable. He's not saying, what on earth's going on? Something's gone wrong. It is God who brings it. Our world would be appalled at the idea. No wonder Habakkuk battles. It's not with the ugliness of Babylon. His problem is God. He simply can't understand why God allows it all. You find the same problem in Psalm 73. Why do the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer? Why does evil prevail? I think it's fair to say, if you look at verses 12 to 17, that Habakkuk isn't just being some sort of stoic. It'll be fine. You see, Habakkuk knows the character of God. This is a man with good theology. If he were living today, his shelves would be filled with Calvin's Institutes and Spurgeon's sermons. He'd have an ESV study Bible in one hand and a confession of faith in the other. Verse 12, God is pure and holy, surely. He looks at man's inhumanity to man, verse 13. His eyes are so pure, his nature's so upright, he can't even gaze on evil. It turns his stomach, it offends his righteousness. But in these verses, he seems to be like an idle bystander, while men act treacherously, verse 13. He seems to be silent in the face of wicked men, swallowing up more righteous people than they are. What's going on? Do you see his perplexity in verse 13 and 17? He is a man who's scared and off balance, and his faith is tested. So we come back. Have you been there? Are you there right now? I don't know what you're facing. I know some of the things that are in the midst of the congregation of God's people here. Are you fearful and disoriented, unhinged and unbalanced? Are you tearful and doubting? You wish you were faithful and fearless, but in reality you feel faithless and fearful. You have more questions than answers. So why do I emphasize this so hard? Because we don't live in a world of ease. We don't live in a world where we climb up Sunshine Mountain, faces all aglow. We live in a world where man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. We live in a world where God is on the throne, but sometimes providence is perplexing. So how do we deal with it? In the last few minutes, how do we deal with it? Well, the prophet not only reels, but the prophet recalls. I want to imagine that you're the pilot of a twin-engine plane. Maybe you're Andy, man who's used to going up in the sky. You're flying over a mountain range and your family are with you. And initially the flight's uneventful. Beautiful clear sky, startling mountain peaks, snow-covered forests, crisp, still, idyllic loveliness. But after a few miles, a dense fog rolls in, and the beauty below is obscured by the swirls of banks of fog. Nothing is visible to the naked eye at all. And it gets worse because you descend to get out of the cloud cover. And a violent storm sets in around you. And not only can you not see what's in front of you, you can't see behind you or around you. There are no landmarks to guide you, no horizon to steer you, no sun and stars. So what do? If you don't want to crash, if you don't want to go nose first into the mountain, what do? You look at the instruments on the dash. You can't fly by sight. You can't go by feelings. You can't trust your co-pilot because he's as much in the dark as you are. So you fly in the dark, reading the readouts that have guided you home 1,000 times before. When the sun is gone, when the sun is out and the view is clear, everything's wonderful. But in the dark, you're faced with the forcing to trust. Our natural reaction when it's dismal is panic. It's human. It doesn't make you a dreadful Christian. The thing is, when nothing around makes sense, we need to trust what we know to be true. What is true about God? To rest in his unfailing mercy, to lean on his unfaltering love. So what does he do next, and what should we do next? He sets his immediate circumstances before him, and he puts his gaze beyond earthquakes on the one who does not move. He makes a deliberate choice, because in your pain, it's got to be deliberate. He chooses to recall what is true about God when everything else is upside down. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to lament when your life is burning to the ground. You don't have to hide it. But having said that, Habakkuk doesn't erupt into hateful rebellion. He might be confused, but it's not a sinful rant where he spits venom in that face of God. Despite his distress, he runs to God, not from him. Chapter 1 and verse 12, God, aren't you eternal? I know you are. And that means you're before history, and you see history, and you plan history. The world's not spinning out of control. You've warned us time and again about our sin, and we didn't listen. Deuteronomy said, if we love you, you'd bless us, but if we left you, you'd punish us. And that's what you're doing, verse 12. You haven't abdicated your throne, you're keeping your word. You're above, you're in control. My days are still in your hands. Oh God, you are my God. Do you see that there in verse 12? You are my God, my Holy One. You're not impersonal. You're not distant. You're not incurring and disinterested. The clouds might be around, but you're in the midst of them. You're a God of intimate love. You saved me when I was lost. You rescued me when I was wayward. When I was far from you, you retrieved me. You forgave my failings. You redeemed my fallings. You lifted me up when I was empty. And you loved me when I was broken. And you restored me when I was guilty. You are my God. More than that, you're a God of holiness and justice. You are my Holy One. You're pure, verse 13. You're not evil and capricious. I can't understand your plan of providence, but it isn't that you're acting sinfully and maliciously. It's simply that you are above and greater than my understanding. It's simply that your providence is beyond my ability to grasp. You deal justly. I know your heart. I know your integrity. So even when I'm overwhelmed, I know that the one who orders the universe is for my good and is good. I know that you're the one who sends these ravening wolves to deal with sin, and I don't get it. I don't know how it works. I don't know why history is that way, but I know that it is God who does it, and the plan of God is still being worked out. That verse in chapter 2 and verse 4, the just shall live by faith. I look beyond, and I know that you're a God who keeps his promises. And more than that, you're my rock. You're the God of solidity, even when all around makes no sense, when my feet have got shifting sand. I can't put my trust in my friends or my leaders or even on my feelings. Folks, don't trust your feelings. Habakkuk looks up and he says, in the midst, you are my immovable rock. When everything else falls, you stand. And the eternal plan may be a tapestry of confusion from my perspective. But the sovereign Lord of timeless wisdom doesn't make mistakes, doesn't slip up, doesn't allow accidents. He makes sense of all of it. You are Jehovah of hosts. And you might not answer my prayers immediately, says Habakkuk. I might have to break my heart upon your providence. I might have to cry out to you. And your will for me might not be what I would choose for myself. But you are just. You remain the same. It might seem like the end, but verse 12, it isn't. We will not die. The promises will not fail. Messiah will still come. Your will be worked out. Why? Because God hasn't left the scene. So this morning, God is your anchor. God is your solidity. In a world of terrible red top headlines, in a world of confusing personal circumstance, have the same theology as Habakkuk. Have an anchor in the storm. Because in times like these, says the old song, we need an anchor. It doesn't remove him from Babylon's invasion, but he reaches out to a God who is and acts and is ballast for his soul. He looks at what he knows, not what he feels. What he knows about God, it's not worked out in a big, comfy, easy chair with a big pile of theology books on his knee and a cup of coffee, and he sits back and he goes, do you know, this is great. Everything feels lovely. All my friends around. He works out his hard theology on the anvil of anguish. And in the midst of it, he does something that you and I need to do. He's honest before God. What's your prayer life like? Can I ask you what your prayer life's like? Because Habakkuk's is a bit of a revelation, I think. You see, he goes to God and he doesn't avoid his pain. He takes it to the throne room of heaven and he roars his suffering. But at the same time, in the presence of God, he rehearses what he knows to be true of the person of God. He pleads the solid, immovable truths in prayer. He tells God who he is, and he reminds him what he's like. That's good praying. He considers his God, and although there's no magic lever to switch off the misery, God looms large in his lament. This is a song of lament. And it teaches us what we need to do when we're blasted into similar grief. He remembers the character of God and the nature of the Almighty, and he comes and he shouts to God. Are you in distress this morning? Can I encourage you? Do what Habakkuk did. Don't have a quiet, polite prayer life. Do it out loud. Lament with every fibre of your being. Give vent to it. But do it. He wrestles. Chapter 2 verse 1 says, I will wait on you. That's not polite and sentimental religion that he's got. But he comes and he gives vent. And he says, I'm going to stand at my watchpost. I'm going to get on a tower that is bigger than just what I can immediately see. They had these movable towers on the battlefield to allow those who were orchestrating the fight to be able to see where the conflict was worst and how to move their troops. And Habakkuk says, I'm going to stand on my watchpost and I'm going to look and see what God will do. And what I will answer concerning my complaint, because it's a complaint. He comes and gets his heart out. If you know anything of Job's roar of abandonment while he's sitting on the ash heap, scratching his boils and all the pus is coming out. If you know anything of Jacob wrestling with God, not this carefully orchestrated World Wrestling Federation play acting, but holding on for dear life, blood, sweat and tears. He grips God, and that's what Habakkuk does. He grips God. This morning I want to encourage you, grip God. Some of you like reading good books. Not enough of you maybe. But some of you do. You like nothing better than immersing yourself in the pages, soaking in the storyline. The problem is you get so engrossed, you want to know what happens at the end, and you can't turn the pages fast enough. What's going to happen next? You've seen the way the characters have developed, but you're tempted to skip to the last 50 or the last 2 pages. My friend, it's the same with Habakkuk. Right now he's in the prison of despair, but in a few short verses, we're going to find him looking at the last page. Right now there is only heartache and torment, but by faith he looks to a time when the world that seems upside down will be turned the right way up. The reason he has faith is not only in the greatness of God and the person of God, but in the promises of God. And the reason you, my hurting brother or sister this morning, can cope is not only is there a God on the throne who loves you intimately through the Lord Jesus Christ, but also his promises are true. Things are not always going to be like this. You only have to read verse 14 of chapter 2 and keep reading to verse 17 of chapter 3 to find that weeping is for a night, but joy comes in the morning. He can't perceive, but one day all of these shadow lands will be turned to glory lands. He grasps by faith that a day is coming in time when the knowledge of the glory of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. You hit the fast forward button. There is a day coming when we will be more than conquerors through him who loved us. When all wrongs are righted, all wounds are healed, and all tears are wiped away. Right now, there's nothing to indicate hope. The world looks on and says, have you seen you? What's the point? Christianity, we live in a post-Christian age. But there is a time coming when it won't be that way, when God will turn up in glory. There will be an ultimate day when we are kings and priests before God, we will stand in halls of majesty, and God will finally be understood by everything in the earth, under the earth, over the earth. He will be vindicated for all he's done, and we will be safe, we will be secure, and we will enter a joy Such a joy that is not in any way comparable to the sufferings that we faced. The fog will be lifted then, even if it's not now. The clouds will be parted then, even if they're not now. The sun will rise and be seen then. It's shining now, but in God's tender love, sometimes his frowning providences make it difficult to see. But the day is coming when all of these things will be righted on their head. And in the midst of the awfulness of Habakkuk's cries, we're going to see optimism and joy and hope and peace and the appearance of the Son of God upon the page of Scripture. And Habakkuk steps back and he says, Lord, I'm looking at the long game. I love the words of Isaiah 50 and verse 10. And probably with this we'll finish. Who among you fears the Lord, and who obeys the voice of his servant? Let him who walks in darkness and has no light trust in the name of the Lord and rely on his God. You know about this, some of you. No light, deep darkness, not a chink of brightness to be seen anywhere. You're in the valley of the shadow of death, but you're trusting in the name of the Lord, because when all around our souls give way, then he is all my help and stay. He is saying, I am for you. My Christian brother or sister this morning, in the midst of our perplexing world, look up. Cry out. Hold on, because he's about to turn up. And in weeks to come, we'll see that together. Okay.